Welcome back to Spill the Beans podcast. I am so excited to have you here. Let's get into it.
Hey guys, welcome in. Welcome back to my podcast, Spill the Beans. It's me, Beans. And this week I want to start things off by saying what I am grateful for. And obviously I am thankful for all of you guys who support me, who watch my podcast, who watch my YouTube videos, who watch my TikTok videos, who support me on live, who buy my oils, my bath salts, all of those things. I am so grateful for all of the abundance that I have in my life right now. And all of the various forms of abundance, not just monetary, physical abundance, but the abundance of love, the abundance of support, just the abundance of friends and family, all of those things. I'm just so grateful for all of the abundance that I'm experiencing in my life at this point in time. And I just wanted to share that with you guys. And I'm hoping that you guys will take a moment to think about all of the things that you are grateful for. And hopefully it is a long, long list of things that you are grateful for. But even if you can't have a long, long list, it can be something super simple of like, I'm grateful that I woke up today, or I'm grateful that I had McDonald's this morning. Whatever. It doesn't have to be something so elaborate and complicated. It can be something super simple and easy. But this week's topic is about these two things, the Kybalion and the 7 spiritual laws of success. Now, you may also know them as the 12 spiritual laws. Regardless of if you're referring to the 7 or the 12 spiritual laws, both are derived from the Kybalion, right? So if you want a really good understanding of the spiritual laws, it is worth it to read the Kybalion, right? Because this is where that comes from. And as we're going into the Kybalion, as we're really getting into it, you'll be able to notice that. You'll really see how that takes from it. But before we really get into everything, why do you need to know this? What is the importance of these spiritual laws? Why do we even need to bring this up? What's the purpose? What's the point of it all? And the point is, both of these things go over how to work with, manipulate, and use energy, right? So if you're anyone who is working with energy, if you're anyone who's trying to use it to manifest, make anything happen, it's worth it to go over these books because it gives you a good foundational aspect and base support of what is energy? How do I work with it, Like, what are some of the rules and regulations that energy has? And a fun thing about these two things, both of these things, free. You can look these things up online. You can look up the 7 spiritual laws, you can get it for free. You can look up the 12 spiritual laws, you can look it for free. You can look up the Kybalion, the book, and it'll give you a free PDF version of it, right? You can also look up the 7 hermetic principles, and you can get that for free. So both of these are freely available to you. So if you want to know more about them, you absolutely can. It's just one simple Google search away. Now, starting with the Kybalion goes over its concept of the universe. And its concept of the universe, and you'll see this referred to many times, is the all. And it describes it as an infinite living mind. What is also very interesting is while it refers to the universe as the all, if you've ever heard that Christian phrase, the all in all, it comes from the understanding of the Kybalion. It comes from, okay, the universe is the all. We are all the universe, and the universe is a part of us. We are one of the same. So like the universe is in us, we are in the universe. That type of thing. So that understanding of the all in all that you hear in a lot of Christian songs that a lot of Christians say comes from the Kybalion. Believe that or not. You don't have to take my word for it. You could read it. It also starts by defining involution, which is basically, as it says, living in your own creation or manifesting or seeing your physical manifestation or creations. And evolution, which is basically that creation rising to a higher state. This is meditation, connecting with the higher spirits, just elevating yourself mentally is what that is. And basically what it says is both of these things are simultaneously happening at the same time, all of the time in the universe. There's constantly something being created, and at the same time there's something always elevating itself, always getting itself into a higher state of mind. And this is a cycle that happens in everything, right? Something's always being created, something's always raising to a higher state. And that's really what it starts off by defining what is the universe in its concept, what is involution, what is evolution, and then it gets into the 7 hermetic principles. And the first one is mentalism. And that is the thought of, okay, the universe is a part of us, we are a part of the universe, we exist in one another, but it is important to keep in mind that these are still two very separate things. We are not the universe, and the universe is not exactly us. We are part of one another, but we're still separate and together at the same time. It's a little bit hard to fully grasp at certain times, and if you read the book, I feel like it leads into this idea of, okay, once you've read this book, once you try and understand these principles and these teachings, it kind of almost makes you want to have a superior vibe about yourself, you know? And I need to warn you, don't lean into that, right? That just leads to spiritual bypassing so hard, and you stunt your growth. You stunt your spiritual education once you start to see things that way. So, yes, we are a part of the universe. The universe is a part of us, but that doesn't make us all that the universe is. The universe is so much more than we could ever be, right? And that's just how that is. But we are an extension of it. So we can manipulate the energy. We can have a connection. And that is something that is important to understand. The second principle is the principle of correspondence. And this is where we get the phrase as below, so above. This is basically stating that all of the planes of Earth connect to each other and they kind of bleed into one another. You know, there are very fuzzy lines that connect them. And so theoretically, it's not hard to transform from one plane to the other or bring something from one plane to the other, right? You can make it so that way what is happening on one plane is happening on your plane. And that's all that is. But in this chapter, it talks about how many different planes there are. And I have a beef with this, honestly, because it talks about the physical plane, the mental plane, and the spiritual plane. And each one of these planes have 7 subplanes. The problem with this is it goes so little into detail about what these planes are, right? It gives almost no information about, okay, what are these planes? What is going on here, right? It gives one sentence, basically. And some of the subplanes, you really only need one sentence for, but it's throwing so much information at you in this book, especially with these planes, and it's giving you so little information that I feel like it's a disadvantage to you, really. So that's just my thought about it. That's just my opinion about it. But it does go a lot into, okay, what are these planes? What are each of these subplanes? But it doesn't say how to work with them, how to connect with them, how to interact with them. I just feel like it skips over a lot and it could have gone into a lot more detail about that. So that is my beef about that. But the second principle is the principle of vibration, which basically state that everything is always moving, everything is always in vibration, everything is constantly not still, which feels like in correspondence to the laws of physics, right? Which, if you know anything about atoms, they're always vibrating, they're always moving. Electrons, constant state of motion. So it makes sense that there is a law that says, hey, everything's always moving, everything's always vibrating, right? Nothing's ever truly still. It's one of the laws of physics, of course. And I feel like that law of physics comes from this. This is my own personal opinion. I don't know if I can really prove that one, but it kind of goes hand in hand, right? The fourth principle is the principle of polarity, which basically says that everything has its opposite. Cold is always opposite of hot, up always opposite of down. Like everything has its polar extreme. You know, it's basically the same thing, just on the other extreme is what that is, which basically means if there are always two poles, if there's always, okay, here's the extreme of this and here's the extreme of that, there's a spectrum where things can be on, right? Like there are degrees to everything, you know, because everything always has its polar opposite, just like black and white. There are shades of gray in between that, right? Up and down, well, there's a whole list of like height wise where you can be in between that up and down, right? So, in my opinion, this feels like saying everything is on a spectrum because there are always two poles to everything. The fifth principle is principle of rhythm. And this basically says that everything is constantly in a flow. Everything is constantly swinging back and forth from those two poles. And everything is in this constant cycle, right? What goes up must come down. What goes down must come up, you know? So there is never truly one state that you're always going to be in, right? And what's also interesting is in this, it says, in order to feel an extreme of something, you must also feel the extreme of something else, right? Because the depth of the swing depends on how far you go in one direction, right? Which means in order to experience great happiness, you have to be willing to experience great sadness, right? In order to win big, you have to lose big. We all know this. So if you try and numb yourself and cut yourself off from feelings, or try and make it to where you don't feel any negative emotions or any negative things, you're cutting yourself from all of the positives that you could also feel from that very same thing, right? Because you can only go as far as you can in any direction, right? So if you only allow yourself to never feel any sad emotions and you're like, oh no, I'm just ignoring that, you're limiting the amount of happy emotions that you can feel. And so that is something to keep in mind. Also in the book, it says that, and this is something that I have beef with again, it says that the hermetic master can basically eliminate the backward swing, which is basically any negative parts that may happen. And that is not true. You can't just make it to where you don't experience any negative things ever in your life, right? That's just something that's never going to happen. Negative things happen to everyone. What you can do is take these negative experiences, take these negative emotions, and basically use them to make happy moments. You know, you can be like, I'm going to learn from this moment. I'm going to take what I can from this moment and use it to turn it into a happy moment, right? So it's not getting rid of the backward swing. It's using that to power the swing in order to make it to the most extreme, powerful, positive swing, right? So it's like, let's use this to make it into the best positive thing that we can. And that's how I see that. Anyways, the next principle is the principle of cause and effect, which is basically every action has a reaction. Every thought we think, every act we perform has a direct or indirect result. And that forms life, you know, that forms anything and everything that we interact with. So basically, what this is okay, if you're going to do something, be aware of all of the possible effects that it could have, is what that is. The next principle is the principle of gender. And the way that this looks at gender, it's not like, oh, okay, it's not female and male properties as most people see them. It female energy correlates with involution, which is creating, right? Male energy correlates with evolution, which is elevating yourself to higher levels, right? That is what its idea of female and male energy is. And it says that basically everything has this female and male energy. You know, everything in life consists of both of these energies. There's not one thing that only has one of these energies. It's all in everything. It also briefly mentions mental transmutation, which is transforming one type of energy into another type of energy. And I think the book does a pretty solid job of going over that. So if you're looking into transmutation of like how to transform energy, I think that that gives a good basis and starting point for that. So you could take a look at that. And those are the 7 hermetic principles, basically summed up for you. And that's most of the book. Now the book goes into way more detail. There are a lot more words, and you could probably get a way better understanding if you wanted to by reading it. But that is basically what that is. Now we get into the 7 spiritual laws. So the first spiritual law is the law of potentiality, which is basically the universe is full of potential, right? The universe has all of this energy, all of the creativity, all unknown and known things are in the universe, right? That is basically what that says. And then we have the law of giving. And the law of giving is basically that the universe works in an exchange. In order to receive, you have to give, right? There's something that you have to give in order for the universe to work with you, because that's how the universe works. There's a give and take, you know? So if you want something to happen, you have to be willing to put in the work. You have to be willing to put in the energy. You have to be willing to put in the time. You know, you can't just sit here and do nothing and be like, all right, I want it to happen. and wait for it to happen, because that's not how the universe works. Then we have the law of karma, or the law of cause and effect, which correlates directly with the Kybalion, right? And a lot of people, this has been like westernized, whitewashed, and all of the spiritual laws, by the way, westernized, whitewashed, um, and colonized, in a sense. This is where that threefold law comes from, actually. Like if you put any energy out there, any negative energy, that's going to come back to you 3 times. And it's this sense of, if you do bad, bad is going to come to you. And if you do good, good is going to come to you. But that's not 100% correct, right? There are bad people who receive good things, and there are good people who receive bad things, right? It's not always about the energy that you put out there. It's about every action has a reaction, right? Every thought, every act, everything that someone does has an effect, right? So you have to think about, okay, what are the effects of these actions that are happening? What are the potential outcomes, and how can I use the potential outcomes to benefit me? And I think it's a way better way to think about it than, oh, it's just karma, right? I feel like that doesn't give more power to you. I feel like that takes away power from you in some sort of way. But that is just my own thought. And the threefold law really is a Wicca thinking. Not everyone believes in the threefold law, but if you do, that is A-okay. More power to you. Me personally, I do not. Then we have the law of least effort, which is basically energy is lazy. It's going to go down the easiest path that it can, right? It's going to go where it's easiest for it to go. And the thing that I like to think about for this is, if you ever see a river being formed, it's going to go where it naturally is easy to go. It's not going to go in like this whole opposite direction. Like water naturally flows downhill because it's easy for it. It's effortless. It's not going to all of a sudden start going uphill. That's just against its natural flow. So if you make it hard for certain types of energies to be around you, it's not going to be around you, right? If you have this thinking of, money doesn't like me, it's always hard for me to get money, money is not going to want to come around you, right? It's going to be like, anyway, skirt, right? But if you have this thought of, money loves me and money's are besties, right? Money is always around me. Money's going to be like, it's easy to go there because they're not resisting me. Let me go where I'm naturally wanted, right? If you have this thought of, I'm surrounded by happy energy, happiness is going to naturally flow to you. So it's about, don't make it hard for certain energies to come to you, right? Don't make it hard for the energies you want to be around you to be around you. All right, make it hard for the energies you don't want to be around you to be around you. And then we have the law of intention and desire. And basically what this is energy is everywhere. Information is everywhere, right? And it's about utilizing that energy that's around you, right? If you want something to happen, use the energy that's around you. It's everywhere. Anywhere you go, always energy is there, okay? So if you're intentional about what you do, if you're intentional about the energy that's around you, a lot will happen for you. You can see a lot of manifestations start to happen. You can see a lot of things start to work your way. But if you don't utilize the energy that's right in front of you, nothing's going to happen, right? So it's all about, hey, make sure you're being intentional about what you're doing, right? Even stirring your coffee with intention can have so many benefits. Intentional showers, just doing anything and everything with intention can be so beneficial to you. And once you start to see that and realize that, it changes your life drastically. Then we have the law of detachment. And basically what that is, it's about being willing to let go. And in my head, it's not just about, okay, let's detach from the physical thoughts. Let's detach from like physically holding on to people, physical monies. It's not just about that, because that's not just the only things that you'll ever need to let go of. You're going to need to let go of thoughts, beliefs, some of your wants, some of your desires, because sometimes some of the things that you want are just unable to happen. It's unable to happen the way that you want them to happen. And you have to sit there and be like, okay, I'm letting go of holding on to this thought of this want so much, because sometimes we get in the way of our own happiness. We get in the way of our own success by holding on too tightly to things. So that law of detachment is being willing to let go of everything and anything in general, right? This is not to say not having any attachments ever. This is not holding on too tightly to all of your attachments, because we are people. We need community, right? We as humans thrive off of community. We need support. you know? So we can't have no attachments ever because we are just human beings. And trying to have no attachments ever is just going to make you lonely and sad. And you might not like who you end up being at the end of all of that. So it's just being willing to let go of the things that you need to let go of. And the last law is the law of purpose. And this is basically, we all have a purpose. We all have a reason for being here. And once you find that purpose, it's about, okay, how can I use this purpose? How can I use this thing that makes me happy and give back to the universe? How can I give back to my community? And that's basically what that says. And like I said, while these are great thought processes and while these are great foundations to have, these are a little bit westernized. These are a little bit colonized. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about it. But I do think that these give you a great foundation to learn to work with energy. And now we get into the questions part for this podcast. Now, I really only had one question this week, and I'm okay with that. That is A-okay. That is fine by me, right? But this week's question was, what are some of your favorite spiritual books? And I've already answered that a little bit with the books that I've talked about, right? We have the Kybalion, the 7 Spiritual Laws, and really, these are free. You can get these free Google. This actually has a second book, right? And it's called the Summonum. And I've been wanting to read that book for forever, but it's basically like, okay, it's more about the hermetic principles. It's more about the hermetic teachings. And I think the hermetic teachings in general are really interesting and a nice place to start when you're learning to work with energy. So that is one of the books that I also would recommend, the Summonum. Another book is The Psychic Witch by Matt Aron. This book was personally signed by him. He wrote a nice little message for me in this, and I love it. I thought it was really great. I thought it was really nice. But this book has tons of exercises in it to really hone your psychic abilities, right? To really just to get to learn to work with your intuition, to really just work on your clairvoyancy powers, your psychic powers, and just strengthen those, right? And there are not a lot of books out there that work on strengthening those powers. So if you're looking to really strengthen those psychic gifts, to really work on your claircognizance or any of the clairs, really, this is a great place to start. I'm not even gonna lie. And then there's a second book that he made, which is called Mastering Magic. Also a really good book, also really great. Would definitely recommend that for anyone and everyone. Another book that I think is great is the Crystal Bible. Great reference if you're getting crystals, if you love crystals. This has dang near every crystal that you can think of in there, right? So if you're like, ooh, what's the property of so-and-so crystal? Get the Crystal Bible, all right? And what I think is fun is the Crystal Bible actually has three books of it, right? This is the first one, and then there's a second one and a third one. I am eventually going to have the second and the third one, right? But I just love it so much. It's so great when referencing crystals, okay? Another book that I just cannot get enough of is Sigil Witchery. Even if you've been doing sigil magic for years and years and years, right? You can still learn something new from this book because of its take on sigil magic, because of the way it looks at it, because of how it approaches it. It goes into the history of it, the meanings the meanings behind some of the sigils and the symbols that we already use in our everyday lives. So this is just such a great book, and I think it will give you a great foundation on how to make sigils and how you see sigils, how you see certain symbols in your life. So this is definitely one of my all-time favorites for sure. And then some that I don't have but I do love is the Book of Correspondences. Now this works really great if you're doing spells, if you're doing any magic and you're like, ooh, I want something but I don't quite know what. You look in this book and it has so many great correspondences. You can be like, ooh, what's the correspondence of that again? That book has it, right? So good when doing spell work and all of those good things. Another book is the Encyclopedia of Herbal Medicine. If you work with herbs, if you're out here making tinctures, oils, you're doing spell work, it has such a great encyclopedia and knowledge of herbs. If you want to use herbs to heal, this is a great book to get because it gives you the medicinal properties of all of these different herbs that we may or may not know the herbal properties of. So those are just a couple of the books that I'm like, these are great, these are amazing, these are wonderful. Definitely would recommend all of them 10 out of 10. And to end this episode up, I just want to give a shout out to a couple of people who I think are amazing. The first person is Storm. She is absolutely amazing. She does Reiki. She does these beautiful, amazing healing Reiki sessions. She also does candle magic, right? And you can get some candle work done from her, but she is just so great. She is just so amazing. And I would recommend going to follow her on TikTok, YouTube. She has a YouTube, but just really go show her some love and support because she is great. She is amazing. And then the second person is B. B also is a tarot reader. They do amazing tarot readings. They do mediumship, which I do not do mediumship. So if you're ever looking for mediumship, you could always go to B. What I will say about B is is B is a feminist. Okay? So if you're not ready to be interactive with a feminist, don't go to B, right? B is also going to be brutally honest. Okay? She's not taking no one's shit from anyone. So if you come at her sideways, she's going to come at you sideways. Just keep that in mind. All right? B's real, honest, and a feminist, and she's not afraid to let you know that she's a feminist. So do what you will with that information, but these are two very great people that I would recommend you go show some love to, that you would support, and just really spend some time enjoying the community, right? This is so that we can really help out and support the community, and that is why I'm doing this, because I would love to create a community. But that is the end of this episode, and I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope you guys learn something from it. And if you have any questions that you would like me to answer for next week, let me know. Actually, I lied. I am changing my podcast release dates. So instead of it being every week, it's going to be every other week just because it'll work better with my schedule. I am starting to become a little bit busy. Things are a little bit more hectic. So not next week, but the week after next, another video will be coming out.